Hello, hello. We're back once again. Oh boy. Having a bit of issues. Ooh, there we go. Hey. We're back once again for some more, well, Voices of the Void. The second part, of course. So we're going to go back in. Last where we left off, we're starting off, I believe, day 5. And starting to get into a few, well, shenaniganeries. We found a hall, which went really far away. Got a drive. Got a robot cat, pink robot cat, to do the work for us. And we've got a pretty efficient run. Did a lot of signals, did a lot of work. Not a lot of spookies. We did find an abandoned house though. I did try to get a goat head out of it, but there we go. So far, nothing quite exceptional. Haven't had as many spookies as I expected. Only one time where the lights turned off, and that's about it. So yeah. Hopefully, this time, we'll have a lot more things happen to us. And perhaps the story will at last begin. Since I have no idea, but yeah, I've looked, I've looked at all the hints and tips. Trying to figure out anything. I did look up, when does the story theoretically start? It should actually start this session. So yeah, here we go. So yeah, getting back in. Hopefully everything works fine. No, everything's good. Well, without further ado, let's get in. Probably not the greatest return distance, but here we go. I need to give me a second. I love this game. So much easier in terms of the L tabs. Whoop, whoop, whoop. There we go. And now we're back in a righteous place. Oh boy. Oh yeah. I forgot to hit the cigarette but didn't have any lighter, and so I'm stuck with it. Well, that's great. What were we doing? Oh yeah, were we downloading a signal? Oh, hello. Alright. Let's get Kerfer back this way, grab this. Whoop. And try to shove it in, please. Come on. Ah, shit. Get in. Get in. Ah, come on. This is how it starts. This is a great start to the stream. Oh boy. Right, you know what? Whatever. No, he is half energy. Ah, shit. Come on. Come on. Yes! Alright. So, where were we? It's 9 in the morning. Do we have a signal? Or do we not have a signal? Doesn't... it looks like we do have a signal. Or we don't. Right, time to look for a signal. So we have one over there. Turn position, let's go, yeah. Something's moving over there. Is there a signal? Nah, it doesn't look like it. There's gotta be something. I might have missed it. Well, never mind. Probably something over there. This is probably like the worst aspect, is the signal chasing on that screen, because it is so hard to see anything at all. But yeah. It's somewhere nearby. Oh, there we go. Please be a signal and not a false positive. It's an invalid alt. Oh, there. Please be something. Was ever so faint. Nah, weak signal. Well, it was already gone by the time I got there. Oh, there we go. Please be something. Sensor error. Come on. Three false positives. Oh, this is one hell of a day already. Oh, this one is big and strong. What do you mean Four failed signals. How do you get to 4 failed signals? Please, if you fail as well, I'm going to... I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh, at last, something. Oh, this is finished processing. It looked like... Yeah, it's a pretty big signal. Alright, let's put this in there. Let's grab you. I need to process you. Alright. Let's get to the good old polarity chasing. A classic. Right. Are you a positive on this polarity? No. How about this one? No. How about this one? No. Let's go with the negatives. Not here. How about here? No. How about this? What do you mean? Oh, for God's sake. Please, let there be... Or is it because... Oh, it's probably because I went too fast. Trying to chase it. There we go. Right about there. Perfect. Right, so it's about there. Let's grab this signal. Well, that's the best we can do. So here we bloody go. Oh, this is turned off. Did I actually have to, like... Yeah, I actually got my hash codes already. Well, that's already done. Emails, no new emails. Yankee Whiskey Papa, yeah, I think that is actually the hash codes. I'm so efficient, I had actually already done all this. It's great. So all we need is download most signals, get this processed. And so far, so good. It's called being extremely efficient. Alright, how are things going? Kilo Mike Oscar Papa Quebec Romeo is off. We'll be fine for now. If the second one comes off, I'll send Kurfer. So, we're in debt of about 10 points, which is about a good start. This one can get. How damaged are you? Pretty damaged. Let's fix this. Plus the fuel is going to be a problem. I'm going to need to buy some fuel. This is going to be a bit complicated otherwise. Oh, yeah, here we go. Why do I still have a bowl of beer? Did I finish it? No, I didn't. Well, now it's finished. Right. Let's have a little walk around. There's some trash here. Let's sort of move it all away a tad for later. You mean sees trash, means more garbage bags, means more money. Oh yeah, there's this. Actually, I do wonder something. I haven't tried looking if there was anything. Ooh, a little bit of lag. No, nothing on top either. Oh well. I tried. It's a nice little signal box. Alright, so somehow there has to be a way to get in there. I've gotten myself a hook. I've gotten myself a crowbar. Maybe a password changer is going to be necessary, but those are pretty expensive. How can I deal with this? Probably going to do a lot to get there. Alright, so far, everything's been fine. Nothing too weird. Some trash here. More trash. Not the status of all transformers, actually. I believe I should be able to examine this from inside. So, can I... Yeah, TR, check. They're all active, they're pretty high in power, so far, so good. This is going to be a pretty mundane day. Well, was there anything else I can do in this facility? Apart from moving all this. I'm absolutely going to need more garbage bags. There is so much trash everywhere. Well. I'm gonna bug this out. Physics. There's some more drives in there. Oh, you know what? I'll just... Yeah. There we go. Can anything be seen through the little slot window at the back of the bunker? Oh! You know what? I should actually check. You're perfectly right. Can anything be seen? Let's... Well, there's a staircase. And there's a little something, a card there. Oh, can I grab it somehow? No. Nope. But there's a card. So what I need is to somehow get this door open, and there's a card in there. Problem is, getting it open. Normally, using a melee attack should actually open it, but it hasn't done anything, so... yeah, I'm a bit uncertain how to proceed. Yeah, I'll just break that other, like, this. There we go. And there's... oh, so the protection kit. Let's collect this. There's a potato, some paper scrap, some canned food. Server repair disc, some rubber trash. Nah, some drives. An MRE drives. Another drive over there. Oh, shit. There we go. And if I can grab this, another MRE. Right, perfect. So we've got some stuff. Oh, things downstairs. Persistence with the hook might pay off. I don't know. To be fair, it's such a small slot. And it looks like, you know, a card wouldn't actually be useful for the outside. As in, this looks like a password. Oh, no, this actually is a keycard system. Ah. Right. You know what? We've got all bloody day. Let's try this. Don't know. Oh. Shit. Oh. Yes! Oh boy! I think we got it! Persistence with the hook did in fact pay off. Damn! Alright. Absolutely. Oh, well. That one's a bit of a pickle. And this time it does not work. Alright, let's try it. Ah, this time this works. Perfor Omega Documents Binder. Right? Battery. I'd lock. Oh fuck! It locked behind. Right, the lights does not work. Empty bags, rubber trash, some books. Not contain anything. And some more. Yeah, I sort of expected more. Nah, character's angry. Well, let's examine this again another time. But it's already a great success. We've got something out of it. What does the Omega text say? Oh. Perfor Omega Documents. Kurfa Omega is a series of complicated systems and requires several materials when need specific men to assemble it. And so you need a head, torso, pelvis, arm, legs. The head is 2 plastic, 1 metal, 2 electronics, 1 glass crab, 1 AI Omega model, 1 original Kurfa party. Part. Oh, not party, parts. Ah. Somewhere around Romeo, buried the boxes, you need something that detects underground objects. Iron module is at the bottom of the lake, inside a safe. You can get it if you have special equipment, or you can try to tow it out with a hook. I don't remember the password, but the safe is very old. If you can hear the right clicks, start scrolling the code wheel down. Wait, what was it? A radioactive core? Wait. Pelvis, 1 radioactive capsule. Right, this sounds like a lot of work. That's gonna be a lot of stuff to do later on. Let's just put all of the random stuff in place. My small brain can't remember all of that. Well, that's why we have a manual. Alright, let's drop all of this off. I'll drop this here, I'll drop this here, I'll drop this here. Well, we can get rid of this. I'll let the thing here, and I'll drop all the drives at their light spot. So, canned food here. Go for Mega, let's put you here, so we don't forget. Here's the disc, here's the other disc. This can go with the trash. Now, the drives are going to all go over here. There we go. And it's time to go grab some food. If we still have anything left, otherwise it's going to be MREs. Well, MREs is. I do have one. There we go. And I think we can go for a little sleep while the signal's downloading. Everything's gonna be fine. Oh, there is a signal they need to be processed as well. I can't sleep too much. I need to get everything sent by midnight, otherwise we're not gonna have any points. Plus, I did the whole routine already, so... Let's see, this is processed. Alright, perfect. Let's get this in there. Process this. Right, how is this? This is 60% downloaded. Alright. So, put this in line. We'll go back for a little nap. And try to recover some more fatigue. And then back again. We need to get everything sent before midnight. Alright. Now, let's get back there. We've recovered a bit more. And this is processed as well. Alright, perfect. As this is 74 downloaded. A bit slow. Signal quality is very low though. Yeah. Oh, we have a database. We can save copies of the file, I guess. Right. How's Kurfa? Kurfa's 100%, so operational for later. Well, for now, everything's pretty chill. Nothing spooky's happened yet. At least for now. Back for a little quick sleep. So finish processing. Let's get to 20. Now we go for one last run. And we'll send everything. Right, it's only halfway done. Huh. Oh, this is completely off. Ooh, boy. Why is this completely off? Uh-huh. There we go. Right, so we are at about 60% done. Let's keep going with short little naps. Now we absolutely need the signal to be processed, so I can send it and be done, and then just have to wait for the next email. It is almost done. Alright, there's the signal here. We've been messing around with this again. Oh, let's try to edge it. Alright, can't do it. We're almost there as well. I'll just wait for this to process. I'll put everything in there. I'll just rip this page off. This is done! Alright, should have a bunch of different drives. Let's put this here and the lid. Oh. Oh, I left the front door open. There we go. That's going to be properly closed. And the job of the day is done. Perfect. Oh, let's see how much this gave us. Once this is almost finished downloading. Front camera is not looking too good. I should probably get a better quality one. Right, well, looks like everything's good. Time for a little nap. Alright, just a little... There we go. Little fix. Huh. Well, that's inconvenient. Doesn't want to sleep. Why? But because I'm not tired enough? Well, it's gonna be great. Well, you know what that means? It means we're just gonna be chilling here and collect dust. But yeah. So it needs 2 plastic, 1 metal, 2 electronics, 1 glass scrap, and an AI module, as well as some parts. Joints are around Romeo, but I need something to dig it up. The AI module is in the middle of the lake. What's the lake already? I might need a map. Alright, I'm going to keep Omega for like way later. Way later. When I've got a bit more of this up and running. This is literally the end of day 5. So... Ooh. Email. 59 points, 30 additional points. Noise. It's very noisy and low quality, but still I think we can catch something out of this. Alright, sounds good. Alright, let's play this signal. Yep, looks good. Oh, signal. Oh, we're gonna be efficient today. Alright, I've had enough. Let's grab this, do some processing. Yeah. Alright, so let's do some polarity searching. Oh, there we go. Immediate. We go at the frequency. Perfect! Right, we've got max of everything, and what I'm going to be doing is growing myself some more garbage. Alright, let's order us a nice little... what you should do. And an item box would be also very useful. There we go. We're going to need to wait till midnight so we get all new orders. What does this note contain? Beginner's Guide to Recycling. Wooden trash. 2 large wooden gibs. Plastic trash. Plastic scrap is made with 6 plastic trash. Gives you paper scrap. All coming soon. Oh! Well, I've been sending trash away, so actually I could have just used it. Oh well. There's the drone. Right. Give me my garbage bags. What's that sound? Alright, let's get rid of the remaining garbage. There's a little bit over there. A little bit over there. There we go. Oh, welcome to cleaning simulator. Essentially, nothing has changed so far. Ooh, glass trash. Organic trash. And there's some more trash here that I need to take off. Where's the drone? That's bad. Be nice. Living like that would be nice. Cleaning sim. Yeah, kinda. To be fair. I mean, alright. It looked absolutely abysmal at first. Like, there were the entire place was disgusting. So I just spent like every time not taking care of the signals, just going around, cleaning everything, sort of getting stuff in order. But yeah, the fridge was filled with waste and so on. It was terrible. All right, let's grab this. Yeah, no, it was horrifying. It's still kind of horrifying. Like, you know, I'll just finish putting all of this in. I can give a showcase of like the main, like the bedroom and how terrible it looks. Let's just grab all of this. I'll leave any? None. All right, let's just get this done because I don't want to have to do that later. There's still some there. But yeah. I know nothing about this game. What is it about? So essentially it is a sandbox horror game. It's very, you know, cozy. So the whole deal is you're some scientist sent in the middle of the Alps. You have to go collect signals for whatever space association you work for. And yeah, and so some spooky stuff happens. You search for voices in the void. Yeah, I know. It's the name of the game. That's the name of the game. Yeah. It is absolutely that. So, you know, spooky stuff sometimes happens. I mean, I found some weird wooden house in the woods that was completely not suspicious. But yeah, look. Oh, that's not good. You see this? Oh, wait, I'm in the way. But there was a little thing right next to me that said save error null. That's not good. That means some spooky shit's about to happen. Alright. But, what day are you on? This is day 5, we're transitioning to day 6. So, this is the room. It still looks like shit. But you know, it's better than it was at first. There used to be a lot of garbage here. And this used to be absolutely terrible. I put most of the trash around here. Yeah. So, and you can still see there's a lot of trash here. I haven't taken care of this entire area yet. But you know, I've taken care of this entire area. So now, you know, this looks good, basically. Oh, I forgot some trash here. But yeah, and plus, we've got mannequins. They're absolutely everywhere. They sometimes scared the shit out of me. Have I played before? That's why I've said it's mostly blind, in the sense that I had previously done just the first day, as in trying to get this game to work and verify that everything was good. Otherwise, I have absolutely not done this game at all, so I have no idea what's going on. So, you know, the spooky stuff will happen, and I will... I have no idea when, I have no idea how. That's the deal. I need to get rid of this. Thank you. Let's put this, and let's export all the trash. There we go. If you need help, I have advice to... yeah, no problem. But so far, I just want to, you know, go through this entire thing and just be as... just go through as pure stupidity. But yeah, but do not hesitate if you want me to do something that would, you know, inadvertently curse me. Right, oh, this is done. Alright, perfect. Save the signal, and now I need to export it. So let's grab this. Let's play this thing. That's probably going to look terrible. But yeah. Dream life, absolutely. Alright, what's my new email? What do I gotta do? Victor, Papa, and Charlie. Alright. Let's get this done. I'll just want to export this. Let's hold it. I'll just... oh, I need a new drive box. I'm going to need to buy myself some drive boxes. Oh, this is an empty one. Why do I have an empty one on myself? Right. This one's 40%. Done. Let's get ourselves one signal, and then we'll go... Look. Fuck's sake. If you have enough money, you should get a pumpkin and take it to the mouth of the cave. There's a cave? I'll have to look for that. Alright, let's first get this. So at least it'll be processing some signal. We'll be away. Alright, and... let's wait for this to be good. Oh man, I have to check on the status. Must be ping. This is all broken. We're going to need Kurfer. Right, Romeo. And just Romeo. Alright, let's send Kurfer. Yeah, it's in the valley, easy to miss. Alright. Well. Once I'll get enough. I gotta... Go, my... oh, shit. Go, my child. Fix my shit for me. Alright. Okay. Well, I'll go check that out. Immediately after I'll have done the daily task of the hashes. Unless it brings me around there. Alright, let's do... ah, there we go. Polarity is over there. Whoop. Oh, that's going to bring me negatives. Boop. There we go. Oh. That's not too far. There we go. Alright, now this is in the process, so what I need to do is go see Victor, Papa, and Charlie, which are... so, Victor's there. Papa's there, so let's do Papa, then Victor, and Charlie, and then I can do the valley afterwards. Because, yeah, the valley's up there. Alright. There we go. It's in the valley. You should find it first, so you know where it is. Alright. I'll just take care of the, Alright, so it's, target, and let's go with Papa. I'll just take care of Papa and Victor. And then I'll come back to base, and I'll be able to go for the Charlie thing. So... has it grabbed? No, it hasn't. Why hasn't it? It's literally there. Right. Right. It's by Satellite Dish R. Alright, so Romeo. Okay. I'll check that out right afterwards. So, first... let's deal with this little... me and my driving skills. So first we need to go find Papa, which is over there. Just do this. There we go. I'm going to need to buy myself some fuel. What's the long grey thing in front of you? Oh, because I accidentally grabbed a cigarette, not knowing how to get rid of it, and I don't have a lighter. So, yeah, I'm kind of stuck with it for now. Alright, here's the hash codes. So, for Papa, the hash code is 15F6AE9D82. Alright, and now let's SV target Victor. It's Victor with ice. Alright. Boop, 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 boom. But yeah, no, it's a cigarette. It's literally just a cigarette. I still have a potato on me, and I still have this, so... you know what? I'm a bit hungry. What's the... oh, there it is. Ah, yeah. Okay, I mean, if you know how to get rid of the cigarette, I'm okay with it. But yeah, otherwise, that's how I sort of screwed myself over and got stuck with the cigarettes. I mean, it's funny. Alright, so this one is Victor. Right. Well, this says the hash. And there's Victor's hash code. 128.16EE72. There we go. And now we need to SV target Charlie. And now we're being efficient as hell. And I missed the way down. How did I miss? There it is. Because I'm blind. I'm trying not to use batteries. Oh, there's a transformer over there. You know what? Might as well, since we're around. Let's go have a little checkup. There we go. Checkup done. It should be Alt-R with nothing in your hand. Yeah, it's not doing anything. Well, gonna be stuck with the cigarette for now. Right. If not, check your keybinds. Ah, shit! No! I fucked myself. Oh no. I fucked myself. That's okay, it stopped by a tree. Alright. I'm an idiot. Alright, my keybinds. So... I mean, unless... Is it... Wait, I haven't checked one thing. Is it considered to be... No, it's not considered to be equipped. What? I don't know. I don't know. Kurfa can find broken server. Alright. Kurfa's going to be returning to base shortly then. And I did not notice that. Ooh. Alright. Where's it gone? Oh, here it is. How bad is it? It's good enough. Good enough. Good enough. There we go. Yeah. Oh, let's go for. I'm not going to be dealing with you right away, Kurfa, because I need to go to Charlie and then go find a cave. Well, you know what, I'll just head to base. I'll see if I can order the, Alright, Kurfa, come to me. Fuck's sake. Let's just grab it. Come here. Good boy. Alright, let's just activate you. Alright, perfect. No! Shit. There we go. Any office. There's a lighter in Transformer 1. Oh. I'll go check that one out. Alright. I got this. Did this finish processing almost? Alright, you know what? I'll just wait for this to finish processing. And then I head to Charlie. Then we've got Romeo. Romeo is over there. And Transformer 1 is literally the one we were next to. Alright. Well, I'm not gonna have much of a reason to go back there anytime soon, but I'll get there. This is still okay-ish. And to light it, will be right-click to light it. Alright, noted. Perfect. Come on. What the hell is this? This one. And we're almost done. Alright, perfect. Doesn't look too bad. Let's go, and you seem to be a cool person. I'm really enjoying your stream. Thanks. Thanks. But yeah, currently I'm doing this as a solo, but when my friend's going to be back from his little vacation he's been doing, we're going to be doing also some Halo Cursed Edition as well. But yeah, no, I'm happy people are enjoying this for now. As little as this is. So a pumpkin is about 50. I can actually order this. No, we'll wait for the pumpkin. Oh, get that. What are the games you play? So far, because this is essentially my 5th stream. For now, I've only been doing Halo Cursed Edition. I've done Voices of the Void. I do plan on, even though I'm waiting for more of the second game's expansions to come out, because I want to do both games back to back. I'm planning on doing Kingdom Come Deliverance, the first and the second game, back to back, in hardcore mode. Which will mean maximum suffering. Of course. But yeah. that's one of the things I'm planning. Another thing I plan on maybe playing is going to be some Astronauts, which is a roguelike game that is set in space, where you are sort of, you know, you're a scrapper, essentially, in a far future. You can essentially build your own spaceship, you can scrap parts of other people's spaceships so you can, you know, repair them and so on. And so it's a roguelike, and it's pretty fun. It's pretty nice looking. I recommend you looking it up. It's called Astronauts with an O. And it's pretty nice. Right, this is absolutely huge, apparently. Alright, but I'm not going to be able to get in the car with this. Sorry, horror, you should have phasmophobia. I have phasmophobia. The only issue is getting enough friends that are willing to play some right now. But yeah, I'll get to the back of the ATV. Oh! That is actually smart, and I have absolutely not thought about doing that. I should have done this with the goat head. Oh! This is absolute genius. Alright, thanks. I did not think about this. This is... I play if you have Discord. I do have a Discord, but I haven't gotten around to... Oh, I don't have a lot of fuel. I should probably get myself some fuel. I should order some fuel. I do have a Discord, but I haven't gotten around to that yet. To, like, getting something organized or on. So, probably a little bit later. But, yeah. Alright, some fuel. That's probably... And gas can. Alright. I guess it's in this form. Around the hundreds. Let's go. This should be enough for a little while. Because we do not have any gas left in there. Yeah, save up for the solar panel upgrade for the ATV. Yeah, I would love to. But right now I only got like 25 fuel left. This is clearly not enough for a few back and forths. But yeah, but in terms of streaming, I'm going to be streaming essentially every Saturday at around the same times. And you can also burn stuff in the basement to make fuel. Seriously? No, for real? Oh boy, there's so much stuff I can try. I'm going to need to figure all of this out. Yeah. Oh boy. Wait. Alright, I'm going to need to look. Alright, so how exactly does this work? Because there is some coal. No, it's not cleaning time. I'm bringing myself some fuel. Wait. So how does it make fuel in here? Is it this thing? You don't need the coal. Alright, so the coal is useless, but yeah, it's this thing. Okay, so we'll burn in there. Burn the trash. Alright. I'll just... Oops. Crushed a bit the mannequin. Alright, well, I'll deal with this later on. If you get to this side of it, there's a place for gas cans. Uh-huh. Alright, we're no longer ordering any fuel beyond the fuel I just ordered. Alright, okay. That is extremely useful to know. Alright, let's put this here. Alright, thanks! That is extremely useful and is going to save me a lot of pain later on. I'm going to be able to save up for that ATV. Alright, let's then put this here, and let's head back on. You can also sell trash for money. That I've also already done. Already done the whole selling trash for money. I've been selling garbage bags full of trash for quite a while. Since day one. Alright, Charlie is this way. Where's the bridge? Bridge is probably over there. There we go, there's the bridge. Don't forget to stop at TL1. Yeah, right afterwards. First I'm going for Charlie to get the hash. I'll go towards Romeo to find the cave, put the pumpkin in front of the cave, and then head for Transformer 1 and try to find that lighter. Alright, so Charlie is this one, most likely. Alright, let's go see this. Are you Charlie? I did not check outside, so I'm pretty happy I'm starting to get the hang of this place. Alright, so 02 91 6 0C 415. And now we can start doing random stuff because the signals are going to be processing. I only need like 2, if I remember. So I should have my second one by the time I get back. Alright, so wait, I forgot to put that. I needed to go to Romeo. I forgot to put that. Did I put the brakes on? Yeah, looks like it. I forgot to target Romeo. You're gonna meet my best friend. Starting to have some doubts about this whole plan. But you know, we're here for the spookies. Target Romeo. There we go. Romeo targeted. And now let's go in. He's nice, I promise. Well, I hope so. Right. Right over there. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, this is so acting like a counterweight. I hope it doesn't send me flying. If I remember right, there's also another transformer over there, so... Alright, so it's in the valley. We're in the valley now. So it should be somewhere nearby. Oh, looks like a strange formation of rocks. Perhaps the cave is over there. Why have I been hearing walking sounds? Right. Nothing suspicious. Would like to know his name now or after? It's funnier to go in without knowing anything. So one figures out, you know, we're here to fuck around and then find out. That does not look like a cave. Where's the cave? Yeah, that's not a cave. That pumpkin's still there. Alright. So if it's not there, where could it be? It is. It is the cave. Alright. Okay, then I'm just blind. Oh! Oh, there's a... Oh. Well, you know what? We're just gonna be saving, just in case. Right, let's get this. So, grabbing... Oh, and the hook. How do I go? There we go. Grab your pumpkin. I got my pumpkin. Here we go. Right. Scared the fucking shit out of me. Oh boy. Oh, that's a long boy. It doesn't seem too happy to have seen me. Do you like him? Says some camp from the... Yeah. Ah! Looks like I'm bleeding. Oh, that's not fun. Well... Let's, No, you know what? I need to know. I need to see if there's anything in there. I'm too tired. Let's not pass out within this, strange lair. Oh, there's stuff. There's another pumpkin. And there's mushrooms. And another pumpkin. And mushrooms. I'm just annoyed you woke him up. Oh. Warning, the game saves automatically before you enter the area. You cannot save progress in the area. You know what? I'm not going to go in there right now. Let's, avoid. There's something in one of the nests. Huh. It's mushrooms? Mushroom, mushroom, mushroom. Enough about the damn mushrooms. I don't find anything. I mean, there's a pumpkin, and some mushrooms. He's come back to eat stuff, but I'm not seeing anything. Hey, buddy. I'm gonna go out before I start passing out. Right, you know what? We'll go back for this. But my character's like at 10 of sleepiness, so this is not gonna end well. But now I know there's a cave there. I'll probably do a quick nap. He was asking you to leave. Yeah. Right. That was one spooky meeting. I not expect a huge centipede. That was something. But thanks. Because the last session that I've been doing this, I haven't had a lot of spooky occurrences or anything, so I was starting to feel a bit disappointed in the sense that I was told that there was like a lot of weird stuff going on. But yeah, if you don't have a pumpkin, the other time the cave entrance open is at 3 AM. Ah. Alright, so I need to use a pumpkin every time I want to go visit the cave. That's good to know. Alright, I have to note that down. I'll use one of the notebooks and like just note myself some tips because I might forget stuff. So, alright, let's get the ATV back in. Stop. Oop. Let's close this. Check on anything, grab the second notebook, and I'll use my second notebook. How the hell is the player supposed to figure that out? I had no idea either. I assume that's why you have such a long game. Alright, where's the other notebook? Oh, there's the other notebook. Let's collect and use that. So, this notebook, I'm going to call it the tips and tricks. Alright, so 1, cave is near Romeo. Offer pumpkin to enter, or come at 3 AM. Right. I have no clue, but I'm hyper obsessed with the game. Perks of autism. There are many perks that come with autism. Not that I would know. I don't think I have any, but you know, I've seen a lot of people have some really good perks with that. Oh, ADHD. So the second tip I would need to remember is can make fuel in and I will put this somewhere. This is the one I want to get rid of. How do I? So this one I'm going to drop. Then I'm going to put this here, drop, and grab this one back, which is the one I want to use, and this one is going to go here. Right, there we go. Social skill is sadly not one of them. Yeah. I mean, you know, you get a buff somewhere, you get a debuff somewhere else. That's how the world goes. And I'm going to eat this delicious burger. And I did not check the signal. Rant lovers are always there. Oh boy. Ranting is underrated. Everyone loves ranting. I love ranting. I can rant about history. But yeah. I'm gonna get on extremely long rants. Hopefully, I'm not going to be going into too many long rants with those streams. Otherwise, well, there's going to be a lot less playing and a lot more listening to me yap about random stuff. Like, for example, did you know there's a French king that was killed by an exploded pig? I'm not going to go into that story, otherwise we're never going to be able to get anything done. Oh boy, getting really tired. Interesting. Get around about axe throwing and Vikings, and I know who it was. So I can look it up. Who was it? I don't remember. I learned this like super long time ago. Okay, so because in French high schools, you had a library, which is the BCD or CD, depends on which how they named it. It depends on the school. It's always like one of these two names. And so there was a magazine there when I was a teen that was called Sciences et Vie Junior, so Science and Life Junior, which was a teen version of Sciences et Vie, which is an actual scientific journal. And they had sometimes some random stuff, some random findings and so on. And I don't remember what it was, but essentially they had figured out that one of the ways a siege was broken during the 100 Years' War was via the use of a pig as an explosive. So essentially you had the wall of the castle, I don't remember the exact castle, it's been like years and years, perhaps almost 10 years at this point. But essentially, you see, medieval castles during the 14th century have started to evolve because you started to have gunpowder. Gunpowder started to emerge. You had stuff like the pistola, which is a Czech gun, which is essentially called a pistola, means a flute. So it's essentially a flute. So you start having like those sort of gunpowders. You start having cannons. And so medieval castles adapted to that. So what you do if you want to prevent a castle wall from being destroyed by cannon fire is that... What was I doing? I completely forgot. Is that you want your you want your wall to be hollow. So you essentially have an exterior wall, an interior wall, and you have sort of an empty space that is sometimes filled with various... I need to find the... Where is... How far did it drift? Oh, that's because it did not drift far. And so essentially you want this hollow area so it would absorb the shock of a cannonball, and so the whole wall wouldn't be, you know, destroyed at once. But that comes with a structural issue, which is that because the wall is hollow, it is not as well equipped, and the exterior wall is slightly tilted. You know, it's tilted. The lower part is more outwards than the upper part, and so essentially thanks to that, it absorbs the shock because, you know, the force of the cannonball is going to be distributed across the wall. But that means you have no good structural vertical stability. So if you damage the ground underneath with, you know, tunnels and so on, you can bring the wall down. So you'd think, all right, so you just did some tunneling and so on. And that's when it gets extremely funny, because what the English did at that siege, and I need to find what siege it was and what king it was, but essentially what happened is they took a pig and they blocked the back and they just stuffed him with grain. So he would get gases, methane would build up inside the pig, and once it had built up a bit, essentially we think it's probably that the pig was a corpse at this point. It was probably processed as well into gas due to decomposition, but the story goes that the pig was alive, even though it's probably not really the case. But essentially the pig was, when it was prepared, was brought into one of the tunnels and they lit it up with a torch. And so this caused a powderless explosion, which then caused a collapse of the ground due to the intensive tunneling, and the wall collapsed. And because it so happens the current king of the French at the time was on that wall, well, he died out of the explosion. And so this is how a French king was killed by an exploding pig. Right, there we go. That was a little fun rant. But yeah, and so as we say in French, nous irons dormir moins bête, we'll go to sleep less ignorant. Why is it drifting so much? Oh boy. But yeah, history lessons. Oh, but if you ever start... remaining here a bit too long. You will get through a lot of history lessons. I am a big history nerd, even though that was absolutely not my Oh fuck, there's already a signal in there? Ah, shit. I did not notice that. No? Then what the fuck? I am confused. Nope. Oh, this is... Alright. Now it works. Because it's a storm. Ah, it's working! It's just I'm stupid. Alright, so... Ah, it's a storm, that's why it's drifting so much. Oh, possibly. Alright. I'll need to build up some storm resistance. This is sensor error. What the fuck? Need to find more signals. Need to find more signals. New signal. Invalid object. Shit. There we go. But yeah, the story of the exploding pig is the thing I like telling people in general when I first meet them. This is my introductory story. But it's like I can tell you something else about French history, being French, is... Alright, so you see how when you have, when you go to eat and you have your cutlery, that's the word in English, cutlery, you have rounded knives often. So this is because of the French, or specifically it's because of a cardinal, the French cardinal. So I'll just get this. So essentially, one of the things that, so you had during the rule of Louis XIV's early reign, you had Cardinal Richelieu. So Cardinal Richelieu is a very known, is in like the Three Musketeers, is that cardinal, he's very known, he's got paintings and so on. A cardinal is a position within the Catholic Church. Alright, so I'm going to give you a rundown of this. So the Catholic Church is a very the Roman Catholic Church is a very hierarchical structure. Alright, and most of Europe was Catholic until, you know, you had the whole Reformation. So the cardinals are the one with the fancy red wear. They are the highest position in the church underneath a pope, which is actually a wrong technical term. It's a pop culture term of calling him the Pope. Technically, it's the Vicar of Christ, because the Pope is actually the name of the highest position within the Coptic Church, which is not the same thing at all. But yeah, so France had a cardinal, which was Cardinal Richelieu. So cardinals are chosen amongst the highest like amongst the bishops or archbishops in general, and so they are the ones that vote for the next pope. They are the highest members of the church, and so they have a lot. They have a lot of sway. And the church, for a very long time, the Catholic Church had a very strong political position. It had the power of essentially over kings. It was a very, very huge power. So Cardinal Richelieu was the regent of Louis XIV when he became king, because Louis XIV was essentially a child. So he had a huge influence upon the court. But Cardinal Richelieu is a character. And so he hated how French noblemen ate. So the thing is, most people have the imaginary of the French nobility of after Louis XIV started to create Versailles, where you have, you know, that idea of the degenerate nobility that's all with wigs and so on, that used to, you know, go around and parade at Versailles in high heels and so on. This is how Louis XIV sort of transformed the French nobility. The French nobility used to be an extremely martial and very powerful nobility. Dukes were essentially extremely independent. They had the power to just, you know, screw over everyone if they wanted. The 100 Years' War was as terrible as it was because the dukes had so much power that they could essentially change sides and change completely the course of the war. They had almost more power combined than the king. And this was an extremely martial nobility. Those were knights. The lighter. Oh yes, the lighter. You know what, well, we have time. And you know, as the target, and it's Transformer 1? Or is it? Oh, TR1 as the target. TR1. TR.1? Alright, if I do TR check, it'll give me the names. Alright, it's TR_1, so SV target. TR_1. Alright, there we go. And so, what was I? Yeah, and so the thing with Cardinal Richelieu is he hated how this martial nobility ate, because they ate with their hands, first of all, and they ate with very pointy, pointed knives, which were essentially daggers, directly. And I think I should probably... No, it's fine. So, yeah. And he found that barbaric. He hated it. He hated it so much that what he did is that he, at one point, ordered that every single knife in the cutlery of the entirety of not Versailles, it was the palace in Paris, which was Tuileries. It was every single knife in the Tuileries would be rounded. Like the tip would be rounded to prevent people from essentially just sticking the knife into the meat and bringing it to their mouth like this and just directly eating the meat off the knife. He wanted to use a civilized Italian invention, which was called a fork. So a fourchette, a small, we call it a small fork, as in we consider a fork to be the big, you know, the big thing used by peasants. So yeah, so forks were essentially Italian. They had started to arrive, but the court has not transitioned to that, and so he sort of forced the French nobility to eat in that way. And of course, because France was always considered to be the height of culture at the time, until the revolution, France was considered the height of noble culture. Well, of course, nobility from other countries started to do the same things, thinking, oh, this is the new fad, it's the new thing, à la mode, that we must do. And so, yeah, that started to be adopted as a thing, and now I have a lighter, and that is great, and now I'll be able to smoke. So, yeah, that is how rounded knives sort of became a popular thing. It became a popular thing because one guy absolutely abhorred how other people ate. But there you go. But yeah, you have a lot of stories around Cardinal Richelieu. You have a magnificent painting of him that can be found. I'll try to look up which artist this is. But it's a beautiful Baroque painting. Just so you know, I'm at rant also about art history and so on. I work in movies, so as in my real job is in movies. So I have learned like a lot about painting and art and imagery and so on as to do my job. Yeah, I have a particular love for the Baroque period paintings around anything that was pretty much religious, because they have essentially done all the huge innovations of the counter reform, and so you have the clair obscur and so on. You have Caravaggio, absolutely beautiful paintings. Yeah, I hope I did not bore you with this rant. But yeah. Alright, so now I've got a lighter, which means I will be able to do something legendary, which is light this cigarette somehow? No? How do I light it? Like, it's open? Light the cigarette! Fuck. Is Madame de Pompadour a real person? Yes. Yes, she is. Yes, she is. She was the mistress of Louis XIV. I'm right-clicking. It's bloody cigarettes not getting lit. Alright. But yeah, no, Madame de Pompadour is a real person. She was indeed the mistress of Louis XIV. There have been many mistresses of Louis XIV. You only know of her through Doctor Who. Oh, you're also someone who watched Who. Oh yeah, that episode with the space station and the Clockwork robots. Oh man. Oh, the David Tennant era. One of the best eras. Honestly, like, my trio of the best Doctor Who periods for me has been my childhood period of Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, and Matt Smith, like the start of the reboot. But yeah, no. But if you want an abomination about Versailles, you can look up some alt and right click. Nah. Right. Fucking it over! Come on. Alright. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Alt is right control, which is what I've done. I really liked Rose of Versailles as a kid. But yeah, well, the real Versailles is something. I've learnt about it in high school, and it's something. We had essentially a horror session, which was one of the class. I had a teacher who was named Monsieur Bernard. He was an old man with a magnificent mustache, absolutely adorable person, who had such a love for his job and for the subject, and he introduced us to won't be E for use. No, doesn't look like it. So I don't know. He showed us the medical dossier of Louis XIV. If you ever want to be disgusted with your life or disgusted with French nobility, you can read the medical dossier. Essentially, Louis XIV only took one bath in his entire life. And that was when he was 33, because he was forced to by his doctors. Flush myself. Commit is enter. I mean, like, we're using left click. I'm using alt, just throws it. So I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea at all. Oh boy. Alright, you know what? Screw it. Okay, but yeah, and so Louis XIV had maggots in his hair, which is why his hair was then shaved and he wore a wig. Yeah, in the paintings that everyone knows of him with his luscious brown hair, he still had his real hair. But later on in his life, he had fake hair. He had wigs. Wigs were not as often worn as people might think. There was a lot of emphasis on wearing real, on your real hair. But it was something done medically. So yeah. %33 downloaded. It's not downloading much, is it? Alright. Well, I don't know how to use this goddamn lighter, because if I do red control, which is essentially my alternate, it just throws it. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I'm doing something wrong. You know, I sort of expected to just, you know, work. Yikes. Yeah. Big yikes. If you want another, try mashing, button mashing, yeah. This. No, that's ragdoll. At least Lady Oscar isn't really can shock me with anything related to that. Yeah. But I can shock you about one thing related to the British monarchy and a bunch of monarchies is, which is also relating to Versailles, is about the national hymn God Save the King, or God Save the Queen. Which was, if you did not know, composed in France. It was composed due to the fact that, essentially, Louis XIV had a huge button right next to his asshole, which prevented him from having agreeable moments in the bathroom, let's say. So, well, God Save the King now, sadly. Yes, well, and so the hymn was composed when Louis XIV had miraculously recovered from his bumhole problem and stopped having excruciating pain. And so, yeah, it was God Save the King from as in he was miraculously cured of his issues. And it so happened that at the time, a lot of foreign nobility was at the court and thought, hey, you know what, that is an absolutely great melody and a great song, and we're just going to, you know, ignore the whole butthole part and keep it for ourselves. And so a lot of European monarchies, so of course the British, but also the German and the Russian empires have used God Save the King. So there you go. Well, of course, because only the British monarchy is left, well, they're the only ones still using it. This is still downloading. This is finished processing. What time is it? It is... Oh, it is absolutely time to start getting all of this. Oh boy. No, wait, we need to expedite this now. Right. Actually, natural anthem run. Yeah. Right. Hopefully, it's gonna get done in time. Hopefully, the drone arrives in time, please. Oh boy. Please, my perfect attendance score. Oh, this is so bad. I'm going to miss my perfect attendance score. All that because I started ranting about the court of Versailles. No, my one weakness, history. Alright. Well, we're still pretty good. So you know what? I think we can also go for the quick map. Not going to be able to do anything. Make sure the drone's actually coming. Yeah, I've noticed. I've looked. It's good. Like it's look. Look. Boom. Here it is. us coming over. So we're good. It just, we might miss the deadline slightly. Not that I can't do much about this. Yeah, he just picked it up at midnight. I don't know, but does it count? We'll see. We'll find out. We'll find out in the morning. Boy. No, the new package. So we are now on day 7, I think. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Well, stuff will start happening soon, hopefully. It's starting to feel like there wasn't lots of stuff going on. As if we're just going around and nothing weird happens, it's going to be pretty sad. Alright, let's see. Daily task. I fucked it up. Alright. Yeah, here. Be more efficient next time. Hash codes were not complete. Please complete the task. Because it does the... Well, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not doing the reports this time. Well, fuck this day, because it already fucked it up. Alright, you know what? Let's grab ourselves 3 more dive boxes to cover ourselves for a while. Where is the signal? Pointed towards the signal around there. Alright, straight down we go. That's 2 things. Hey, the signal. There we go! Grab something. You should use the bedroom toilet at 3:33 a.m. That does not sound suspicious at all. Alright, I'll trust you. Alright, let's put this here. Alright, got a new drive box. Then what can I possibly grab? Base, crowbar, soccer ball, some cameras. Plants, sponge, dill map. That actually looks pretty useful. Cake, not lie. You know what? I'll grab the digital map. That's probably a metal detector. Oh yeah, true. Oh, that one's pretty expensive. Alright, metal detector. And Can we find a shovel? No. There has to be something to dig stuff up, right? Huh. Find the tools. Brake, printer camera. Doesn't look like it. Try tool and shovel. Yeah, so I don't see it. So am I blind? Let's try all. Let's do shovel. So it's not shovel. Is there another name for shovel that could be used? That's always the important thing. It's what are all the different names people use for all these different things? This is to build. I don't need to build things. How can I find a shovel? The Roomba. Spotlights. Cool, funny banana moth, real no fake. Right. Syrup bowls, medkits. Toblerone. Oh, Toblerone. Delicious. Now turn the rafters. Oh, right. Right, we'll grab this and we'll go to Transformer 2. Oh, and wait, where were the whole thing? It was near Romeo, if I remember right. Yeah, it's near Romeo. Okay, so let's put SV target TR2. Then we'll go grab it. And I will get you. Yeah. Alright, where's the drone? That's coming. Oh, there's a drive. Forgot about these guys. Here we go. Ooh, here we go. Metal detector. This looks useful. Alright, let's drop the drive with the others. And my pile of drive shame. Oh, I'll leave the lighter here as well, because I really need it. I'll leave also the Amaris and a potato. Another thing for you to try. Ooh, what would that be? Take a garbage bag, because you're going to TR2 anyways. Empty garbage bag, I guess? Alright, so garb. Just get one empty one. Oh, this is finished processing. Perfect. I'm going to set this up because I haven't been downloading signals yet. Yeah, alright. There we go. Just setting this up to be downloaded while I'm not there. There we go. Obtain a garbage bag and fill it with a pile of gore which can be found behind the vent cover at TR2. Huh. That's not suspicious at all. Right. So TR2 is over there. At the back. And either way, I'll have to go to TR2 to fix the power anyways, so yeah, might as well. Might as well. And then I'll have to go to Romeo to get the parts. Oh, the garbage bag! I forgot the garbage bag! I'm an idiot. The garbage bag. And the shovel. Yeah, we need the shovel at T2, TR2. Okay. Vroom. Alright, let's get to TR2, which is this way. Alright, so let's turn it back on. Second, find the shovel. Alright, so this looks super slippery and I absolutely slipped rafters. Where is the shovel? Is it here or is it not here? Drive plus? Oh? In the ceiling. Wait, for real? There's something up there. No, that's a watering can. Oh, there he is. It actually is there. Alright. Nope. Shit. Right. Let's get on top of the transformer. Alright. And let's fill with this. No, okay. Let's... Nope. No! Fucked it up. Alright, there we go. Ah, scheiße. Okay. So now come to Papa. There we go. And we got a shovel. Right, so the vent, which I assume to be this one. Oh. Well, so I got the garbage bag full of gore. So now what do we do? What's the plan? Then go to Sierra and find the airy zone graffiti on the side of the dish foundation. Dig a hole directly beneath the graffiti using a shovel, then bury. After midnight, the airy pollution. Oh. But this has to happen at midnight, and we still have the entire day. Right, you know what? I'll have to remember to do that. So I kept doing some signals and stuff. Oh no, we have to go to Romeo first. Romeo. But yeah, it's just adorable, by the way. Alright, so... Last we target Romeo so I can get the parts. Right, let's get this done. Her name is Eerie, but spelled Eerie. Alright. Okay, let's SV point target. Oh, almost wrote Romero. We're not looking for the zombies. Let's drop the lid here. Keep the metal detector. I'll leave that. The fuck was that noise? Right? That was not suspicious. There's some random noises sometimes. I don't know if I'm being paranoid or if there's really something sometimes. Right, let's get this going. Fuel, we still have a lot of fuel. Romeo some over. It's okay, 90% of the time it's a pine cone. Ooh. Let's get there, we can do it! Here we go. As a friend of mine always say, it's a question of Skyrim. You can always Skyrim your way through. Alright, so... Ooh, shit. No. We're good. Is this it? No, it's not this, because Romeo is the one that's all the way over there. And there's the old transformer, which I believe I need to go press the button to for the cycle. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Which is a funny name. Like we call it, we call a lot of things apples. So a pine cone is an apple. So it's a pineapple, essentially. No, we do not call a pineapple. We call it something else. We call it an ananas. And a potato is a pomme de terre, so it's a ground apple. Okay, so... I don't think that was what we were looking for. White is perfect, or green, I don't know. Alright, my character's getting a bit hungry. Let's, eat. And there we go. It's detecting something being in the tree. What is this? Oh no, it's... Or did I fuck it up? No, I fucked it up. Oh! Oh, that is not good. Run, by the way. No, there's something still here. That's a metal scrap. Not what I wanted, but I don't like to be disturbed or bury them. Can I bury them? I have to have an item in hand. Right, you know what? Save. Let's go for it. There we go. Buried it back. That's literally the wasp nest. Alright, so... No, it's getting me back there. So if it's not there, where could it be? Ah, screw it. I'll find it at some point. Are you looking for something specific? Yeah, apparently, like, we're at Romeo. It's on the hillside below the satellite. Fucking did it again. Did I drop it? Where did I drop it? Where's my metal detector? Oh, it's there. It looks painful. Yeah, it does. I detected something. There was something around here. I could smell it. Has to be. Alright, it's right there. Old wooden box. Oh, there we go. Ball joints. Oh boy. Oh, that seems to be something else as well. Is it more? Possibly. Ah! Fucked it up. Has to be right next to that. It is so hard to find this little spot. There we go. More ball joints. 4 should be enough. Possibly. I hope so. Now, if I remember right, because I've been here before on my last session. Ooh. Don't die, don't die, don't die. Alright, let's try not to go up this way. If remember, there's a grave right next to this place, and I want to see if there's actually anything within that grave, because I did see it pop on the radar. That's how I found it. I was right next to the transformer. But yeah, anyway, thanks Hidden Valley Ranchi Scream. That's one hell of a name. That was very cool, very useful, thanks. I would not have found it for a while otherwise. Alright, oh yeah, there was this drive I'd found. You know what, now that I have this, I'm going to make sure I no longer have to deal with those ever again. We're making a mega curve. We're literally on day 7. So I don't know if it's going to be like a record or not. But this is going to be something, somewhat of an exploit for the first time. Alright, so somewhere around here, I remember there being a grave that I'd seen around day 3. So I'm gonna check if there's anything I can grab out of it. There, I found this thing. So maybe there's something. Maybe there's something. Let's see. Nothing is detected. Well, that's a bit sad. You know what? I'm going to try. Nah. Well, that's a bit sad. At least I tried. Okay, well, that makes... I think about... Yeah, that's about another piece of the Omega Curve puzzle. But oh my god, I should use the Killjoy plush as a way to make a model for the Omega Curve. Ooh. You can use the plushes on that Omega Curve. I don't even know what the Omega Curve actually is. I'm still like, you know, going first into this. I hope it's some sort of like making Curve huge somehow. That would be really funny. Oh yeah, over there, there's Romeo. That's where I left the ATV. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Huge Curve. I'm somewhat scared what that could be. Okay. There we go. So, now we've got ball joints. And we've got some... Oh, fuck, this is... Alright, you know what? I'm gonna dare. I'm daring. And it's fine. You should process signals and make fuel whilst waiting for midnight. Yeah. True. True. I'll do that. Now that we've got the ball joints, now we've got, like, most of the stuff that I think I'll need, and that pretty much because I've screwed up yesterday, I've also screwed up today in terms of all the signals and everything, and a report. Well, we'll get things done perfectly on the next day. Alright, so if we need to be there for midnight, I think I'll try leaving the base around 22. We'll be there pretty quickly. I know we can just wait. Yeah. Alright, so... Well, let's start by, first of all, I think storing those ball joints here. Keeping the cavalry on me. For fuck's sake. Garbage is being possessed by a ghost. Don't worry about it. Alright, let's see. How is my signal doing? 50%. How is this? This is not processing anything because I don't have anything left to process. So we need this to go a bit further. Alright, Curve. I summon thee because I believe that some stuff might be broken. Go do my work. Right. But yeah, this is going to be perfectly fine. Alright, so... So how does one make a fuel? Also, what do I need? So I got the joints. The AI module is at the bottom of the lake inside of safe. You can get to it if you have special equipment, or you can try to tow it out with a hook. And then... don't remember the joint sign. That should be somewhere in this fenced area, perhaps inside the building. Take out the radioactive core by myself. It is too dangerous to keep around. It is bad for the advance. Meet me at our office after you've done your expedition or something. Use the blueprints and complete manual book to construct the parts together. It should be somewhere down the alpha bunker. And most important, be careful around this creation. Right, so all those parts require some Kerfer parts. So that means I'm going to have to sacrifice Kerfer for the cause. 2 plastic, 1 metal, 2 electronics, 1 glass scrap, 1 AR maggot. So the radioactive core is the hardest part. Well, I guess, given that this is the only part that has no indication whatsoever of... The fuck is going on? What is this? What? No, I was halfway downloading a signal. I was halfway through downloading a signal. Come on, who the hell are you? What did you do? Someone broke my stuff. That's the cat girls. That's cat girls. Oh no. Oh, let's just... Oh, it's so slow. Hopefully Kotha's doing his job. Alright. Actually, there's one thing I've been wondering for a while here in this base. It's this up there. You know what? What if I just... move out of the way. Alright, you know what? This sounds like something is going to be really funny. So, anything important is going to be... Alright, so... there we go. Whoop! I don't think I grabbed it. Alright. Ah, come on. There we go. Whoop! By the way, the stream is a bit laggy for me. Ah, shit. Let me check. Apparently I am... Oh, what? Alright. Apparently I'm uploading at around... 50 kilobytes per second. Is that an MRE pack? Oh, that's an MRE pack. Alright. Use the table and hit it. I'll use the chair. Oh. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, oops. Yeah, apparently, oops. Indeed. Well, looks like my pile of shame has been a bit disrupted. Let's bring all my little drives back together. Ah, shit. Huh. What are our signals over there? Alright. So what time is it? It's 18:30. Okay, so... Earth is probably somewhere. This has slipped a bit, and I did destroy my hook. No, my hook's there. Right, I still have my hook. No! Fuck, I screwed it up. Leave in 5 in-game hours. Yeah. Just need my hook back. Come on. Nah, shite. Ah, putain! Tombe! Bordel de merde! Oh, well, getting there. Oh, I screwed it up so badly. Yeah, there we go. Now we're grabbing the hook back. Right, well, I don't know what's up there, but we'll figure this out later. It is 1909. We are still downloading whatever the hell this is. Right, you know what? Huh. Right. I may or may not have screwed myself over. Again. Is there a stereo in the game? Yeah, I screwed myself over. Good thing there is a magical ability called reloading my stupidity. Alright, let's get this. Come on. Let me grab Mel save back. Because I'm not letting my hook up there. There we go. Alright, I got my hook back. I'm not going up there. Nothing's doing. Still downloading. Still 40%. Right, so let me try to remember what we're supposed to do. Let me go back up. So, to Sierra, and there is an Arizona graffiti on the side of the dish foundation. And I have to dig a hole there. So I'll just set up my SV targets to Sierra, so I don't have to ask myself any questions. Alright, there we go. Now what the hell is Kerfoot doing? Oh, course my character's starting to get hungry and tired. Alright, let's grab some food. I really do not have coffee, which is probably going to be a problem. You know what? Let's eat the shrimp. No. Alright. I'm not taking time to cook. I need food and fast. I need food and fast, and I have to rescroll all the way down because I scrolled all the way up, which means I cannot read what's being sent. There we go. Get chocolate. I can get chocolate. Alright, let's get chocolate. You know what? We have time. Let's give me my energy back. I hope so. Otherwise, I'm going to be bad. Alright. So, chocolate. Coffee chocolate bar. Oh yeah, I'm going to grab. No, I can't grab two. I'll grab one. We need the energy. Now. Grab, ooh. It's helpful. Alright, why is my... There we go. Sorry, I'm just having a little problems with... it's somehow not letting my chance scroll. Alright. It's helpful. Well, I'm going to trust you. Are you going to want to leave the ATV lights on while doing it? Alright. I guess because the flashlight's probably going to flicker or something. Because that's the kind of stuff to happen. How bad is it? Yeah, the extinguisher is done, and there's also still... everything is still running. Oh, cut! Well, still got work to do, apparently. Now where's my goddamn drone? Nah, not too far. Please. I've been helpful so far. You've been more than a little helpful. For real. I don't think I would have been able to do this amount of progress without you. Coffee chocolate bar. Oh yeah, we're back in business. Alright, what time is it? Right, it's 2022. I'm glad to load this game if someone speaks English to watch. Yeah. I don't like, I don't know you speak English, I also speak French, and I speak a bit of German. So, you know, you can pick your choice. Alright, so... now we're going to have to, start moving, I guess. Do I have enough fuel for this? Yeah, it will be fun. Alright, so Sierra's over there. Go, no, you can find out they speak English silent. Alright. Let's go, let's go, let's go. No, there's no shame in only speaking one language, you know. A lot of French people don't speak more than one language. To the point that it's a joke. As in, there's a joke which is, how do you call someone who speaks 3 languages, trilingual, and just call someone who speaks 2 languages, bilingual, or someone who speaks 1 language, French, half a language, American. A bit of Welsh, isn't it? Oh, I have a friend I've met over here who is Welsh. He's from Northern Wales, right next to Chester. That's been really cool. I have a feeling there's not a lot of Welsh people that actually speak a lot of Welsh either. Right, this is Sierra. Okay, so there has to be graffiti nearby. Near the foundations. So this is not where's the graffiti. Should be on this side. Is it there? Eurozone. Okay, this is it. Alright. So now... grab the garbage bag. Put it there. And now we wait. That's gonna be taking a bit of a while. I imagine we're pretty quick. Oh boy. Well, so far this has been pretty tranquil. Like there hasn't been anything much, to be fair. There's no way to have a portable watch in this game. That is something I'd be interested in at this point. Anything interesting about French history? I can tell you things about history in general. Anything interesting about French history? I can tell you something interesting about French culture and history. There's so there is a very alright. You're probably, I don't know how much familiar you are, but there is something about the division between the North and the South. As in, if you ever heard the term Languedoc and Languedoc, it's because Northern France used to speak a different type of French than Southern France. Southern France used to speak Occitan, technically. And of course all the variants of Occitan, which are many. There's a lot of noise. So that means that, of course, there was a language barrier. That's because the north of the country was in fact invaded by the Franks. The south of the country was still mostly under post-Roman influence. It was still very much Romanesque, whereas the north was completely controlled by Frankish invaders when the French kingdoms have became the French kingdom. Also, the south of France was essentially part of the Visigoth kingdom for a long time. So you have this as sort of like why you have a bit of a language difference for a very long time. This language difference will last until you could say, well, the mid 18th century to the mid 19th, where you'll have a very strong anti-multi-language policy. There will be a strong unification of the country policy, which will destroy all the different forms of dialects and other languages you had within France, because you had a bunch of we have something called patois, which is like it's between a dialect and a language. It's too distinct to be a dialect, but it's not distinct enough to be a language. And so you had a lot of those. They were all exterminated. Like, we essentially, people, if you were a kid and you went to school and you were trying to speak your local language, your patois, you would get beaten up, but like you would get beaten by teachers, and it was completely forbidden. You had to speak Parisian French, which would become standard French. Okay, so that's sort of the language. But despite, like, there was the language division, but you also have a cultural division, which is also sort of visible in some different traditions. So, for example, for Christmas, in the north, you do a bûche de Noël. So you have essentially, as a cake for Christmas, the Christmas cake is a log. It resembles a log, and it's a chocolate log. And this is a Germanic tradition. It's linked to the Germans. The Germans do the same thing. And that's because, you know, north of France was pretty much under Frankish occupation. It was mostly, it had blended the culture a lot with the Franks. Whereas the south has been closer to more Latin Mediterranean traditions, and so they have another tradition which is called les 13 desserts, so 13 desserts. So instead of having one cake, you have 13 distinct small desserts, such as dates, abricots, bunch of different things, and those are linked to the Mediterranean trade, and those are essentially a Roman tradition. Is closer to the Romans, whereas the bush is more Germanic. So, right, you have it in the UK. Like the bush, if it's the bush, then most probably because it is a Germanic tradition, and you know the Anglo-Saxons are Germanic, so that also is so it's an interesting thing, and that's because it was the traditional log that was cut during winter. That is supposed to be the log that lasts an entire night. Yeah, chocolate logs. Yeah, it is a Germanic tradition, but in like southern France and in parts of Italy and in parts of Spain as well, they do the 13th desserts. And every dessert represents one of the apostles of Christ, because extremely religious southern part of the country. There's something with southern part of the countries being extremely religious sometimes, whether it be the US or whether it be France, or it's a thing. but yeah, and so there is that. Horrendous. Yeah, the destruction of languages in France was probably one of the most efficient destruction of cultural. It's a form of cultural genocide that was extremely effective, and it sort of intensified as a post commune sort of thing that happened. So yeah, you had the Paris Commune. Well, the communes. Because you didn't just have Paris and so on, which was essentially a major revolt during the end of the Second Empire against the provisional government of the Third Republic. And that was a popular revolt which is known for being quite disruptive. It's not taught in school because it was that disruptive. And it's essentially the reason why what was once Article 21 of the French Constitution is no longer Article 21 of the French Constitution. So Article 21 was that since the Revolution until the Third Republic, which is the first time that was removed after the Commune, Article 21 of the Constitution was that it was the duty of the citizen to rebel and to commit insurrection against the unjust state. So, pretty spicy stuff. So after it was, applied, a lot of stuff were done by the Third Republic's government to try to suppress any possibility of anyone doing something funny, like thinking about, freedom and during a revolt again. But yeah, oh god. The Commune is special, but like French history and like why you have like such. Like the French have a way of being, but they're not as hardcore as they used to be, because the country used to be even more hardcore against them. And nothing's still happening. It's so weird. Like the reason why our streets are so large, in for example in Paris or in other cities, that what we call boulevard. So a boulevard used to mean a street that goes through a town. It goes one way across. But they became larger during the Second Empire as part of like a whole reform to make, better traffic and so on. But especially, then the most important, it was to be able to put cannons to shoot at people. So if people started to go protest, the streets are specifically made so that police could come over with cannons and shoot at people. So yeah. Hey, Kurtha! What are you doing here?
Meow.
Yeah, meow.
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 Right. Ow. Did you just push me?
Meow. Meow.
Oh. Something is happening. Oh boy. Up. Plushie acquired. in spite of the curve. Right, let's go. Yeah, French history is brutal. Well, most history is brutal. You can bring it to life, by the way. Oh? How so? Alright, this... Okay, where do I go? Where do I go? Ah, fuck. I cannot see shit, and it's so bad. Where the hell am I supposed to go? Ah! What's going on? Oh boy. What the hell happened? Where's my ATV? Oh, Kerfer. I lost my ATV. Well, I'm going to have to use the radar to find it later. Ow. I'm the one pushing me, Kerfer. It's going to be a swell ride, if that's what's happening. Oh boy, I need to find all the way to the base. Use the car keys if you have them on you. Oh yeah, I do. Ow! Something's hitting me somewhere. Of course, the character's too hungry to do anything. Ah! It's right about there. Where are you? Oh, it's down there. Oh, for fuck's sake. Right. Hopefully we'll get there in time. I hope I don't die. No! Shit. Did I lose my keys? Yeah. Alright, what was that? I have no idea, but... Ah, crap, not again. I don't know if it's Kerfer pushing me, or if it's the hunger. It can also be the hunger. And my character is essentially hungry, tired, and... Ah! Fuck's sake. That was Kerfer. Oh, shit. Alright. We're good, we're good. We need to find a way to the base now. Shit. Oh, this is so not good. No! Kerfer, please! Oh, this is so bad. No! I'm literally going to die. Looks like a thing. No, it's hunger. Yeah. No! Fuck. We're literally right there. Please. Right, screw it. Screw it, we're going directly into the water. Okay, take care of the ATV afterwards. There's our Murray right here. Come on, we're right there. Do not have food. No, I did not take food with me. Oh, saved. Right, now where's the ATV? Oh, did I lose the keys? Probably lost the keys. I lost the keys. Alright. Well, we'll have to not lose the ATV afterwards. But yeah, that was something. Alright, so we got a plush. Almost died. But things are looking better now. Come here, Gopher. Alright, we're going to activate you. Grab. I'm going to just... Boop. There we go. Now it's reloading. I think you can order more. Yeah, I know. And currently, we don't have much money. I think I'm going to probably be careful about it. Oh, we've got our signal. Alright. I need to save it. I need to save it. Oh, I have one on my... Alright. Save the signal. Okay. Seems like sucks. Let's process this. I'll process while asleep. And let's also grab ourselves one more signal. And get it all done before going to bed. Oh, come on. Cooldown is taking so long. We need to upgrade that. Is it better than 330? Oh yeah, true. I need to think about doing that. What time is it? Oh, it's going to be soon as well. Try to get this done as quickly as I can. Come on. They're taking forever. Right, so... Not on this one. On this one. Alright, start there. Then the signal. There we go. And now the bathroom. Quickly. So, the bedroom toilet now. I think I might have messed up the exact time. Ah, yeah. No. Shit. Messed it up. Well, still have another day for that. Oh boy. That was something. Right. New day, new morning, new things to do. Yeah, try again another day. Alright, let me just check what time it is IRL, because I'm starting to get a bit tired. Yeah, it's almost been 3 hours streaming. Well, just gonna check my emails. See how things are doing. Daily task. Juliet, India, and Yankee. I'll just, you know, grab this. Put a report. And so I need to put this with a paper and a pencil. What you have said. No. Shit. There we go. A paper and it. It's 9:22. Yeah. There are lights on the other side of the world. Where? There was a paper page here. Oh, paper page gone. Visibly. Apparently. That's very sad. Oh, my notepad. Well, you know what? Let's just tear off this one. Grab this. Make a new report. Alright. Grab this paper sheet. Gave a paper sheet. Now we need to find a pencil. Where would there be a pencil? Yeah. No, where there is a pencil. I mean, unless, in which case it's probably been taken away for the catastrophic consequences of me looking up. I think you have to order one. Alright. Just order pencil. Probably not going to be too expensive. Ah, we're just 1 point short! Shit. Well, there's not going to be a pencil right now. How is this doing? This is 82% downloaded. Well, you know what? Make sure you don't move up. Right, I won't move up. It's been quite a long playthrough for now. I'm going to save, and I'm going to be returning to go. The epic transitions. Put way too much work into this. Look. There we go. Well, that was quite fun. So far so good. Well, I will be playing it again every Saturday. Every Saturday, same times. I start at what is essentially 10:30 Pacific time, or In UK time, that should be 18:30 in the afternoon, which translates in PMs to to 6 p.m. 6 p.m. 30. That will be next time I will be streaming on Saturdays. So yeah. But yeah, that is for my regular streams. I always do it on Saturdays. It's a regular rhythm, so I can, you know, sort of still have something that's regular, and at the same time, you know, I have a life and a job outside. So yeah. Otherwise, only inconsistent streams in terms of regularity would be anything that would be like a collab, because I'm most flexible with other people, but in general with myself, I'll try to remain very flexible. So next stream is going to be next weekend. But yeah, hopefully it was fun. Honestly, I had fun, and thanks a lot, Unedited Hair, for like all of your help. We've been going way faster than I thought they would be, and I think we might be able to get an Omega curve pretty quickly. I have no idea what it is. It was nice. Well, it was nice meeting you as well. It was a pleasure. But yeah. Well, so I'm going to be ending this stream. I'm going to go and grab myself lunch because I'm starting to get pretty hungry. I'm also feeling my throat is getting quite hoarse, and I'm going to need something to drink. But yeah, I'll catch you up next time. See ya.